Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. This is round number 6 of the season, coming to you tonight from Spa. My name is Ron Mons. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall we have our old buddy Josh Wilkie. And now, Charles, we're racing outside of North America for the very first time this season, and doing so at a fantastic track as well. Spa's historic in the world of motorsports for many, many reasons, with history dating all the way back to the 1920s. So now I want to ask you real quick, before we head into the first qualifying session, what are your thoughts heading into tonight's race?
Yeah, it's we did a different broadcast here on Sunday, using this very same track. Obviously, a new scan of Spa, some updates to some of the corners. Some updates to some track limits, a little more gravel in some runoff areas, but it looks like everybody really has taken to it and liked the changes. So looking forward to having a good race tonight. Obviously, Spa, as you said, iconic, 100 years of GT racing here, where they did their first 24-hour race in 1924. So, you know, it's fitting that this is the only North American track we are going to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, quite alright, Charles. It's just an absolutely wonderful facility, and I gotta say, the people at iRacing have done a wonderful job recapturing the magic of this racetrack. The old scan was done all the way back in 2010, so this new revamped version of Spa looks absolutely gorgeous, and the service hasn't been around for too long, but I have seen some races and have driven in some races around here myself, and it is an absolutely fantastic view around this wonderful circuit, which is always a blast to drive around as well. We've had a fantastic season of races thus far, so far with 5 on the board. Lots of different winners, lots of different storylines that we will be touching on throughout the entirety of this broadcast. But after tonight, we're only going to have 2 more races left to go. Going to have a 1-week break. Not going to be here on October the 8th, taking a break for this year's running of the Motul Petit Le Mans, but after that going to be running at Sonoma and Sebring to bring this season to a close after races at Daytona, Road America, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, and Spa here tonight for the 6th race of this season. kicking off the month of October here on Apex Racing TV in fantastic fashion. And you know, while we're still in this qualifying session with only 2 minutes on the board of this 20-minute long session waiting for these drivers to get their first times on the board, I think it's about high time that we talk about the people that have organized this season and these fantastic races that we have had the privilege to be a part of the broadcast for here on Apex Racing TV so far this season. That being Operation Motorsports, which is a veteran-led and operated 501c3 nonprofit foundation based in Raleigh, North Carolina and Bryan, Ontario, Canada, serving American and Canadian service members and veterans. Operation Motorsports is based on 3 core values: team, identity, and purpose, and supports the recovery of medically retiring or retired service members affected by military service through motorsports opportunities. Operation Motorsports' motto is one at a time, so if you ever see hashtag one at a time, now you know the meaning behind that wonderful hashtag, supporting a wonderful cause, supporting veterans. Veteran recovery opportunities, utilizing motorsports opportunities, veteran recovery opportunities, and still a sense of team identity and purpose. Veteran recovery opportunities through the lens of diversionary therapy, motorsports immersion, and academy programs. Veteran recovery through motorsports one at a time. Visit OperationMotorsports.org to learn more. We would like to thank Operation Motorsports, not just for all the work that they do behind the scenes, and Charles, considering that you're a former combat vet yourself, you can attest to the wonderful stuff that Operation Motorsports does to veterans, but just from my perspective as a broadcaster, this season has been incredibly entertaining. Now, with only a few more races left in the season, I am a little bit sad that these Tuesday night broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV will be drawing to a close, at least for this season, but still, it's been a fantastic race supporting a fantastic cause in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great organization. I've I've really enjoyed doing the broadcast this year, or this season, I should say. I've enjoyed racing with these guys in past seasons. Just fantastic work. And obviously we've got the, I'm sure we'll get somebody in here to talk about it before the season's over, the Giving Tuesday auction. It'll be coming up. That's going to have some great items to bid on. To help raise a little money for these guys. So hopefully we'll talk about that before the season's over with, as we're watching the first lap times come in for the Pro LMP2 class. Skylar Vickroy with a 2:04.69. And we see Tyler Gilmet in the beneficiary class with 2:05.7. So pretty tight groupings there already, and I think we get a couple more laps in before this is done, and I think those groups will be even tighter. As I said earlier, we did a single make race here, the Radical America Series, on Sunday at this very track, and was pretty shocked. I thought the field would kind of spread out a bit, but it really became a draft race. So might see something very similar here with the LMP2s. Here at this track, as long as these guys keep it pointing the right direction, we may end up having a pretty good race out of the LMP2 class tonight.
Oh, I think it is going to be a fantastic show here at Spa. And just harkening our minds back to just 1 week ago at Road Atlanta, mainly the finish of that 45-minute race. It was absolutely insane in the LMP2, so I think that'll definitely continue here at Spa for round number 6 of this season, but some drivers setting some lap times on the board. And as you mentioned, Charles, Skylar Vickroy currently the fastest qualifying LMP2 in the pro category, currently at a 2-minute 4.694, so that's a pretty good lap time from him to have the best time as it stands at the moment. And exactly 0.3 of a second behind is Connor Parise, who's been another fast driver in the Pro LMP2 category. That Pro LMP2 class has been pretty up and down. Lots of the drivers running in that category have gotten victories thus far. Skylar Vickroy was a driver that kicked off this season at Daytona, backed that car into victory lane for the opening race of the season. Connor Parise has 2 victories, one at Road America and another at Watkins Glen. Meanwhile, the driver that's currently qualified in 4th in the Pro LMP2s, that being Hunter Reeve, is currently qualified in 4th. He won at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park earlier on in the season. Gotta say, Wallace slipping his way up into 2nd at this point in time. He has yet to win a race thus far this season. However, he has been pretty fast in that ZFG racing car, and I gotta say we saw a little bit of a dark horse contender in the form of Matthew Smotherman 1 week ago at Road Atlanta take the victory in the Pro LMP2 class. I don't believe he is joining us this evening, there's going to be 7 LMP2s that we have between both the Pro LMP2 class and the Pro Beneficiary LMP2 category. Gregory Meismer currently on the provisional pole in Pro Ben LMP2, and he's off the back of some pretty fantastic results with 3 victories on the board right off the back of it.
Yeah, he's done a great job. Greg has had those victories, but as you said, there's been a lot of parity amongst these. There's been a lot of different guys with some fast race cars during the course of the season, and we've had lots of different drivers catch some wins. And so it's just anybody's game tonight. It just feels like that this is going to be one of those that we're going to be racing to try to work some strategy for the end of the race to make that last lap pass, and then see if we can hold off the rest of the pack at the end.
Yeah, I think the strategy is definitely going to play a big role in this race. Of course, the slipstream going to play a huge role as well, but the strategy content around a track like this is it's a pretty big factor when it comes to these races, and we've seen that component on full display throughout the entirety of this season, going all the way back to Daytona to kick this season off, all the way through to Road America, Canadian Tire, Watkins Glen, and Road Atlanta. We've seen a whole lot of races be decided through strategy, and with the field this close, I think that's probably going to be cranked up to 11 tonight.
Yeah, we talked with Greg Meismer, as you said, after a couple of races, and he was talking about fuel saving. So I think we might see a little bit of that as well. Guys that are just content to run in the middle of the pack and just take the draft and just kind of hang in there and do a little bit of lift and coast throughout the course of the race to see if they can maximize their fuel to make that really quick pit stop at the end. And then I think there'll be some guys that might try the undercut. So we might see one of those as well. Maybe somebody have a small mistake and decide, I think I'm going to go in and get that changed and kind of reset myself, get some fuel on board, kind of reset the balance of the car, and then give myself some clean air so I can make some hot laps. So it wouldn't surprise me we see a couple guys try that strategy as well.
Definitely see some zany, wacky, and off-the-wall strategies, and as a zany, wacky, and off-the-wall guy myself, I would not entirely be opposed to that. Not a whole lot of time left in this section of the qualifying session. Haven't really told these folks who may be tuning into the series for the first time about the qualifying format that we have. It's a toy mid-long session, open qualifying, so all these race cars are on track at the same time and have to deal with each other as they set their qualifying times. However, this session is split in half, so with the 10-minute clock going off right about now, that's the end of the LMP2 section of this qualifying session. The GT3 is going to hit the racetrack in just a couple of moments' time. Looking pretty good for Skylar Vickroyd to take the pole in the Pro LMP2 class. We're riding on board with Tyler Gilmet. He's going to try and displace Gregory Meismer from the pole in the Pro Ben LMP2 class. 3 cars in that category: Gregory Meismer, Tyler Gilmet, who have taken the lion's share of victories thus far with 3 and 2 apiece, and Daniel Salmon, who's been running in this series occasionally. He ran in the Road Atlanta race in that Pro Ben LMP2 category. So off the back of a second race, trying to get a grips with that race car. That was a car going off the track. That was heading through Blanchemont. Not sure who exactly that was, but nevertheless, looks like Gilmet not able to improve. So that's going to be the end of his section of the qualifying session. So that will be it for the LMP2s, and as the GT3s set their way out onto the racetrack, it's probably a good time to talk about one of the other partners with Operation Motorsports, because as much as the racing has been fantastic this season, it's also been a very good opportunity, just from my perspective as a little bit of an outsider, to learn about Operation Motorsports and some of the fantastic partners that they have. One of them being CrowdStrike, because CrowdStrike is a proud partner with Operation Motorsports to advance their mission of empowering military veterans through motorsports. Their support extends far beyond traditional funding, addressing critical business needs and enabling Operation Motorsports to focus on key engagements, outreach, and expanding veteran opportunities. This foundational support ensures that Operation Motorsports can effectively deliver its programs and create meaningful experiences for veterans in the racing world. Additionally, this partnership facilitates the integration of veterans into prominent roles within IMSA and the SRO, including crew member positions and marketing team positions as well. CrowdStrike also engages an employee resource group events and volunteers in supporting Operation Motorsports at various SRO races and contributing to building and distributing, there we go, second time's the charm, veteran and family care packages. Sorry, I got lost track a little bit there. My apologies. This collaborative effort enriches the motorsports community while providing valuable career and support opportunities for veterans. We'd like to thank CrowdStrike for being one of the fantastic partners with Operation Motorsports. And George Kurtz, who we've talked about a lot every single time we talk about CrowdStrike, he's a pretty keen sports car racer himself, running in the LMP2. So really, it's awesome to see a company like CrowdStrike really throw their support behind not only motorsports as a whole, but also some fantastic motorsports initiatives. And hey, with this new rescan version of Spa, you can even see some CrowdStrike logos around this racetrack as well. But really nice to see CrowdStrike and many other fantastic partners be a great source of help when it comes to Operation Motorsports, trying to do what it does best. But the GT3 drivers trying to do what they do best, about to get this section of the qualifying session underway, trying to deal with not just this racetrack, but themselves as well. Charles, do you think traffic is going to be a big role in deciding who's going to get a good time in this section of the qualifying session?
Yeah, I think so. I think it may be just, I know a lot of these guys are probably just looking to see if they can get a tow, because it's going to give you about a half a second or more on the track itself, you know, just in your lap time, because you can get that nice big draft down the straightaways. So, you know, there's probably some jockeying for position out there. So it wouldn't surprise me that we see some kind of a gap in amongst these GT3 cars as far as our lap times are concerned. Some guys out there just say, you know what, I'm just going to run my lap. I'm not going to worry about anybody else, and I'll get what I'll get. And then you know, when it comes to racing, maybe I can you know, increase that because then I'll be in the back of the pack and I'll be able to tow and fuel save and all the other good things that we've already talked about. So what I found was interesting though was I was looking at our Pro Open championship leader, if you want to call him that. He's won every race. Corby has switched cars tonight, and he's been running the Mercedes all season long. You know, he said, you know what, I'm going to come out, I'm going to run the Ford, the Mustang, for tonight. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent switch for the rest of the season, or if he just feels like this is the best car for the track, but he is in the Ford Mustang tonight as opposed to that Mercedes AMG. So we'll see if that changes things for him.
And this is a very interesting call from Corby, and I'm trying to think. I really can't say I blame him for this call, Charles, because I remember when this car was first introduced. Of course, you with your expansive experience owning a team in the world of esports on iRacing, you definitely knew this a lot better than I would. I asked you about what your driver's thoughts of this brand new Mustang and what you thought about it yourself, and you mentioned in the first conversation we had in relation to this car well before this season even began about how good this car is in a straight line. So of all the tracks that go from that Mercedes into the Mustang, I feel like this is probably the best one to make that swap.
Yeah, absolutely. It is just fantastic. You know, that gigantic V8, the Ford Coyote engine that it's got up front is a beast. But it just, I don't know. There are certain sections of this track that I don't know suit the Mustang that well, because it has the same kind of tendencies that the BMW and the Mercedes do. Is it tends to push a bit on the front, and you kind of wear the fronts down a little bit, and then you don't get quite as good a turning. It looks like he's got all the turning he needs for right now. He had to kind of let off that corner. But it just, you know, you kind of start losing turn in during the course of the race, and it just makes it a little difficult to get the car around the corner. So I don't know if that's going to be a problem for him or not. But like I said, it looks like just from watching him as he was exiting out of Poulon, he was kind of having to roll opposite lock on the car because it was the rear end would come around. So it looks like he's got the balance on it correct. So it may be a good strategy for him to switch off to this car.
I mean, of all the drivers to try and tackle the challenge of switching to a completely different race car mid-season, Corby is probably the driver that would be most keen to try and do that. As you mentioned, Charles, he's had a clean record thus far in the Open GT3 category. He's going to try and continue that here for the final 3 races of the season. Coming across the line now, and he goes up to the provisional pole at a 2-minute 18.737 in front of Manning, who's currently qualifying second in that Porsche at a 2:18.797, so not a big gap at all for Corby. Of course, that is his only first qualifying lap at this point in time, so still a decent amount of opportunities for him to try and improve. Actually, I say that the GT3 section of the qualifying session always seems to buzz by pretty quick. 17 minutes already on the board, so will that be 2.5 minutes left for these drivers? So probably about a lap and some change available for these drivers. Talking about the beneficiary GT3 category, here's Ian Carney in the 54 four-wide motorsports car, currently qualified on the pole in the Ben GT3 class in that Porsche. And he's had a pretty good season thus far off the back of back-to-back victories at Watkins Glen and Road Atlanta. Has 3 victories thus far, picking up a victory in the second race of the season at Road America in the Ben GT3 class. So he's another quick driver as well. It's really been a tale of 2 different categories, Charles. The LMP2s have been a little bit fast and loose, a little bit more wild. In the GT3s, meanwhile, it's been a story of dominance, with Carney taking 3 victories of the 5 and all going 5 for 5.
Yeah, it really is. Carney's had a great season as well, and he's sticking with that Porsche. Had little dramatics at the end of the race last week with him, and I'm trying to think of the other name, where we had a different driver leading the beneficiary class and had to pit on the last lap because he was low on fuel. So that kind of flipped things on its head a little bit. But yeah, it's been a great season for Carney. And looking at Manning's been on a charge the last couple of races. Has really started trying to put some pressure on Oil. Hasn't been able to crack the champagne for the win, but he's been making it much closer week in week as the weeks go along. So he's actually been really, really strong, given the battle to Oil. So it'd be interesting to see with the change of Oil's car if Manning's sticking with that Porsche, if he can finally get the first win of the season.
And wrapping the bow around the storyline that you just mentioned, Charles, involving the drama towards the end of the 5th race of the championship at Road Atlanta, it was actually Tanner Masters in the Mustang that was leading in the Ben GT3 category that things went awry. I believe it ended up being a penalty for him, and that relegated him well down the running order and gave the victory when everything was said and done to Ian Carney. So we'll see if Masters may try and stake his claim on another victory this season, one earlier on at CTMP. So we'll see if he can try and grab his second win of this championship. But we're coming towards the end of this qualifying session. No time on the board now. The checkered flag is out to these drivers. Finishing up their qualifying session, John Hicks not going to finish it on track as he's coming down pit lane in the number 308 Savage 7 McLaren. Currently slotted 4th in the Ben GT3 category. Some more drivers finishing up their qualifying time, so it looks like Ohl is going to hold on to the provisional pole in the Open GT3 category, extending that gap now to a tick over 1/10 of a second. 0.101 would be the gap when everything is said and done in the Open GT3. Trying to do the quick math in my head. That could be the reason why my room is starting to smell a little bit like smoke. Here's Jake Porter in the TFG Racing number 49 car. He's currently qualified 10th as it stands at the moment in the Open GT3 category. I believe he did cross the start-finish line in time, so he's going to be the last driver to be able to put a lap time on the board unless the iRacing gods decide to yoink him back to pit lane. When everything is said and done, to want to have a moment like that, that was heading through turn number 8 of Ravage. That's not ideal for Jake Porter if he wants to improve on his qualifying result about a half a second, my apologies, off of Anthony Calvi, currently qualified in 9th in class. I don't believe this is going to be an improvement from Jake Porter just based off that run heading through Poulan, but we'll see. We'll still ride on board with him and savor the sights and sounds of this beautiful rescan of Spa. There you can see Porter heading his way through turns number 12 and 13. That's Fanye. I'll tell you what, there's going to be a whole lot of butchered corner pronunciations between now and the end of this broadcast. Thankfully, I don't have any French or Belgian ancestors, otherwise they would be rolling in their graves considering the pronunciations that I'll be giving throughout this broadcast. So any French or Belgian viewers tuning into this broadcast, I would like to wholeheartedly apologize in advance.
Yeah, so yeah, this is going to be a very interesting start. We always talk about, when you talk about Spa, it's lap 1 with the run through La Source, and then through Eau Rouge and Raidillon with cold tires, with the field stacked up on top of each other. Always makes for a very interesting start to the race. So let's hope it's a clean one. We had a couple of good ones in the race we did on Sunday, so we're hoping that we'll get the same thing for the races tonight. Everybody gets lined up single file, gets to run through, and then they can start battling up the Kimmel Straight before they get to Lacombe.
Yeah, it will be a very interesting start. Fingers crossed that all the drivers can make it through lap 1, turn 1 clean. Because once they do, I mean, they still have a whole lot of challenge to deal with in a 45-minute race that they would have in front of their face. It's still going to be a good one here at Spa tonight. Going to have, hopefully, I guess it would be 25 cars taking to the start of this race. Only 22 set a qualifying time. Tyler Reed, John Hicks, and Tanner Masters being at the tail end of the starting grid. Speaking of, I believe we'll be able to get the starting grid up on screen in just a couple of moments' time and get things ready to rock and roll from the 6th race of this championship. And it's going to be Skylar Vickroy, the driver that kicked this season off in convincing fashion at Daytona. He's going to be leading the field to green in that number 28 ZFG racing car. Joining him on the front row is going to be the 666, his teammate of Martin Wallace, starting in 2nd. Connor Parise going to be starting this race in 3rd. Hunter Reeve going to be starting this race in P4. That's Gregory Meismer, the top starting pro beneficiary LMP2 driver, going to be starting this race P5 overall. Tyler Gilmet, another pro ben LMP2 driver, the only other pro ben LMP2 driver to score a victory thus far this season. He's going to be starting this race in 6th. Daniel Salmon going to be starting this race in 7th, rounding out your LMP2s. And that's going to be Corby, the driver who's been oh so dominant thus far this season. Going to be starting this race in P8, the top starting of the GT3 competitors. Tyler Manning going to be starting this race in 9th, my apologies. Gene Kelly, meanwhile, going to be starting this race in 10th, rounding out your top 10.
There we go. Starting in 11th, we've got Ty Schuring. Ian Carney is the top of the beneficiary class in the GT3s. Will start 12th. Jacob Little in 13th. Matt Ayo in 14th. Brandon Mateo 2nd in the Ben class in 15th. Tyler Beeman in 16th. Rui Pereira in 17th. Luis Rios in 18th. Anthony Calvi in 19th. Jake Porter rounds out the top 20. And then finishing up with Elliott Whitfield in 21st. Cameron Aubrignon in 22nd. Tanner Masters in 23rd. Kyle Reed 24th. And John Hicks rounds out your 25-car grid.
And that timed out beautifully, Charles, as the field is now getting this pace lap set to go. One more lap around Spa, then we're going to have a 45-minute long blast from here all the way until the checkered flag for the 6th race of this season. It's been fantastically entertaining thus far here on Apex Racing TV. And if you don't want to miss out on any of the action, that gives you more of a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can catch not just the last 2 races of this season, but all of the action that we have here on Apex Racing TV. Because believe me when I say that the action is basically daily here. So you got a whole lot of stuff to look forward to from iRacing. Also some Assetto Corsa competency in the action here on Apex, as well as our camera gets mowed down by these drivers in the GT3 category. You have to send out a lot of bills when this broadcast is said and done. I think we should talk about one more fantastic partner that Operation Motorsports has, and it goes back to the point that you mentioned earlier, Charles, mentioning the Giving Tuesdays auction, because this partner is going to be involved in that in a way. I will talk about that in just a couple of moments' time, because on top of the valued support from CrowdStrike, Advanced Sim Racing is committed to supporting Operation Motorsports through generous contributions to their fundraising efforts and programs. In 2023, ASR donated a high-quality sim rig to Operation Motorsports Giving Tuesdays online auction, helping to raise funds for their impactful initiatives. Building on this commitment, ASR is pleased to contribute 2 additional sim rigs for the upcoming 2024 Giving Tuesday auction further supporting Operation Motorsport's mission to provide veterans with exciting opportunities in the world of motorsports. Furthermore, Advanced Sim Racing has donated gift cards as prizes for the eMotorsports League, enhancing the competitive experience and rewarding the participants who just so happen to do incredibly well throughout this season. Contributions which reflect ASR's dedication to fostering engagement and growth within the eMotorsports community while supporting the valuable work of Operation Motorsports. We would like to thank Advanced Sim Racing, CrowdStrike, and Operation Motorsports for all the fine work that they do behind the scenes, because really without them, these broadcasts and this fantastic racing action would simply not be possible. And I'll tell you what, full transparency, folks, I've been suffering from a cold for a couple of days, so whenever I mute my microphone, very high likelihood I'm either taking a sip of water or blowing my nose. So maybe if my sickness develops a little bit, we may possibly auction off my seat in the commentary booth on these upcoming Giving Tuesdays auction. That would be a very high offer. That would be a very interesting commodity to offer on those auctions. But nevertheless, I think we'll move on from that and talk about the race that we have in store, Charles. Spa, it's a classic with a whole lot of classic challenge. Got those gravel traps as well, looking to catch these drivers off if they go off a little bit askew around this challenging, long and troubling race course. We've got strategy to worry about. The drivers have each other to worry about, and we also have the traffic to deal with as well. Heading into this 45-man race, what do you think is a main thing that is going to catch some of these drivers out?
I think it's going to be finding the lap traffic as we talk about. Even though this is a much bigger track, a much faster track, you know, there are still places that you don't want to try and pass a slower class car, and it's just the traffic in general. The battles through some of the corners are going to be pretty intense, so it's going to put clean racing at a premium. And I think that's what we're going to see more often than not, is going to be what decides this race tonight.
There's going to be a whole lot in these drivers' hands and a whole lot out of these drivers' hands as well. They got to play their cards right, play the hand that they were dealt, and towards the end of this race, they may be in a fantastic position to maybe grab their first victory of the season, or maybe even grab another victory to extend their gap in the championship coming towards the end of this season. The field coming into the final chicane for the final time under slow conditions. Then we're going to get things ready to rock and roll from the 6th race of this season. Waiting for the green flag to come out for the LMP2 drivers. A green flag down. The drivers are on their way. And as much as they're focusing on each other, they have to focus on their run through turn number 1. Don't want to end up in that gravel trap. Don't want to end up running into your competitors. But they make it through clean. That's a pretty good start from our front row sitters. Meanwhile, in the GT3 field, the green flag's down. The drivers are on their way. That's a much more disorganized start in the GT3s with some drivers getting caught napping, and that's a dive heading off into turn number 1. Thankfully, it doesn't end in a glorified round of bowling. Heading off into La Source at the very beginning of this race. Looked like Corby had an absolutely fantastic start in the GT3s. Meanwhile, looking a little bit farther up the road in all of the classes, whole lot to look forward to from not just this opening lap, but all of the racing action that we have for you tonight. Skylar Vickroy still leading. I gotta say, Hunter Reeves has had a fantastic start, as it's been a pretty bad start for Martin Wallace. He's now dropped down to 7th in the LMP3s. A disastrous start for him in the LMP2s, my apologies. Side by side in the GT3s, though, heading their way through La Calme. The field making their way through turn number 1 cleanly. However, they got close to a major disaster with that dive from that Mustang heading off into turn number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are going to have to realize they can't be battling through the corners, or it's just going to check out. They're already just at the edge of the draft window for the GT3 cars, and now Ole has broken that. So it's about a 1.6 second gap. So they're going to have to do a little work to bring him back. And I do see that looks like Wallace may be a little bit off the pace. May have an incident in one of the corners. He's about 4.5 seconds back, so we'll see what if we can maybe get Josh to get us a replay. We'll see what happened there. Here we go. Yep. So coming up looks like we're coming up Kimmel Straight, as we were looking at this earlier, as we go on 2x2. A little touch there in the background, and yeah, just a little little help around. Couldn't tell who that was. Might have been Reeve, who's running in second. So maybe that's who that was. But yeah, just had a little help. Maybe Wiles had to check up a little bit. Felt like he was going to lose the rear of the car, and a little contact made, and around he goes.
Yeah, that's a tough start for him. I was going to mention before he grabbed the green that this was a fantastic opportunity for Martin Wallace to try and grab his first victory on the season, but after that off-track excursion at the very beginning of the race, it is going to be a big hill to climb if he wants to get back up into the front-running position in the Pro LMP2 category. Meanwhile, looking at a fight going on, that's between Meismer and Salmon in the Pro Ben LMP2 class. Those two nearly came to blows heading off through Lake Colm just a couple of moments ago. They get through clean after that shimmy sham heading off into the chicane at the end of the Kemmel straightaway. Very professional use of the term shimmy sham here on this broadcast tonight on Apex Racing TV. Really breaking out the thesaurus with that one tonight, but at this point in time, gotta say a dream start for Tyler Gilmette, extending that gap now to 1.2 seconds in front of Meismer. That's pretty big for a driver who really has had some pretty torrid luck as of late.
Yeah, that's a good gap. But if these guys can work together, ooh, a little damage on the front of that Mustang. It's just like it's hanging on by a thread there in the front end of that car. So I'm not really sure what happened to him, but he's going to come into the pits and bring that in and get his fast repair. You know, we're just only like 4 minutes into the race. I don't know that that's going to be enough to get him to the end if he pits, and just carry too much speed through there and into that inside barrier. Luckily, nice avoidance there. But couldn't tell who that was, but great job of missing the car. As you can see, just cuts down to the inside and just carries too much, and it looks like he may have caught the gravel on the outside, and that was enough to disrupt the balance of the car and spun him into the inside wall.
I'm not sure who that was in the Audi that just had the close call to end close calls. That was way too close for my comfort zone. That was oh boy. I'm very thankful that didn't end in a major incident, because that would have been a hellacious collision between those two coming out of turn number 15 around this racetrack. This may be a replay of it. Possibly going to take a look from Roy Pereira's perspective. The 4-wide motorsports driver was right behind the Audi that had to take evasive maneuvers, and oh boy, you gotta say, the driver of the number 81 car had to take some evasive maneuvers himself. Not sure who that was right in front of him, heading off down through turn number 14 and 15. Maybe try and find possibly the perspective from the Audi, because that is not ideal in any way, shape, or form. That is not what you want to see heading through a corner, which is incredibly fast and incredibly blind in these GT3s. May have been Jake Porter in the TFG Racing number 49 Audi. Go right on board with him. Can't see anything. You can see some smoke there. You can see, oh boy, that was a near disaster.
Nice job by Porter to just say, you know what? Okay, I got to go inside quickly, because the smoke kind of hid the car there. In military terms, we'd call that concealment. So great job by Porter to take the inside line, just like most of the cars took the outside line. But as long as you get through without making contact, you've done it properly.
I mean, to finish first you have to finish and to avoid a wreck. Doesn't matter how you avoid it, as long as you don't hit a wall or one of your competitors. Who cares if a couple of long clippings end up on the racing line? Hey, you're still with a clean race car and still within a good shot of taking the victory here in this race. Lots of drivers still have a pretty good chance. I gotta say, the gap between Ola and Manning, despite the fact it hasn't gone down too much, hasn't increased either. It's still around that 1.2 second margin. But Corby, he showed it a lot throughout this season. He has a fantastic ability to just turn on the hyper jets, if you want to invoke a little bit of Spaceballs terminology, turn on the Cuisinarts, and he could just extend that gap between himself and Manning. But at this point in time, he's maybe playing the fuel game, possibly. Not sure why All hasn't been able to extend that gap. I mean, he's still leading this race, so he can't knock the guy too much. But I'm curious as to what sort of strategy he may be invoking, as that gap is now just a tick over a second at the beginning of this lap.
Yeah, that was a great lap by Manning, fastest lap of the race for the class. So yeah, he may be playing a fuel strategy game, but what he's doing is allowing Manning to stay close, and now Manning is within draft range. So you should see that gap close significantly as we come up through Eau Rouge to Radillon and then onto the Kimmel Straight with that 1 second gap. You should see him pick up a couple of tenths from that distance, I would think. And then we see side by side through there. So dangerous. Good job by everybody to get through there. We see a guy, was that Beeman maybe, that was back there kind of shimmying his car around?
Yeah, I was looking at that and I was terrified from his perspective. That was Tyler Beeman in the number 91 Porsche. He's now going side by side, trying to go side by side, heading his way off into turn number 5 and 6 of the Lake Home chicane. That was Tanner Masters, who's running third in the Ben GT3 class, that he was trying to go side by side. We've got to say, nice drive thus far from Tanner Masters to make his way up into P3 in the Ben GT3 class. A driver that did not set a qualifying time. He's up 8 spots overall at this point, currently running P15 overall as it stands at the moment. So pretty nice from Masters. We'll see if he can get involved in that Ben GT3 battle for the victory. We could see a repeat of what went down just 1 week ago between himself and Ian Carney. Still up 1 spot in class at the moment with a tough stuff from Whitfield. Not sure what happened to him in the Corvette. May have been an incident. Possibly he did not start. Not entirely sure what happened to Elliott Whitfield. Yeah, he was marked as minus 0.93 laps completed in our live timing board. So I don't believe he actually took the start at all. So not sure why Elliott Whitfield ran into some sort of trouble like that. But either way, for the drivers that gained spots from that, they're certainly not going to complain.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm seeing it now. It shows that he's been towed, so he may have some internet issues that may have caused that. So he may be trying to get back into the server and get back onto the track. So maybe just misfortune that misfortune of being disconnected at the wrong time, which is sad because you want to get out here and race. Even if you don't think you've got a chance of winning, you still want to get out here and race and then just to get disconnected from the server, it stinks. There's no other way of saying it. It just stinks.
And that's a very good point to bring up, Charles, about the drivers that all of these drivers are. They're racers, and in the world of motorsports, just being called a racer is a fantastic compliment. Yeah. Some of these drivers, as we have occasionally pointed out throughout this season, some of them are not driving on a normal sim rig. Some of them are using hand controls. So I gotta say, these drivers doing what they are doing up and down the field, whether they're running at the front, whether they're running in the podium positions, whether they're running in the top 5 or otherwise, lots of these drivers just doing the best they can. And it's really awesome to see. It's been a fantastic opportunity, just from my perspective here in the commentary booth, to see some fantastic men who fought for both the United States and Canada very, very well and very, very honorably. Just be able to do what they love. I mean, racing, that's... We had a very heartwarming moment towards the end of the broadcast 1 week ago at Road Atlanta. I forget what driver it was. It may have been Ian Carney. I apologize if it was someone else whose name may be escaping me at this point in time. But they brought up the fact that a lot of these drivers use this league and use this series as a fantastic sense to build up a community in a way, and just have a group of people with a combined interest. And I shared my own experience with getting involved in motorsports. My dad turned 67 yesterday, and he was the main reason why I got into racing. Ooh, close call with Skylar Vickery trying to interrupt our heartwarming moment during this broadcast. That was a close call with himself, and I believe that was Masters, unless I'm very much mistaken, heading off through into No Name, which I think does now have a name in the world of racing. We'll probably bring up that discussion later on throughout the broadcast. But my dad, who turned 67 yesterday, got me into motorsports. So one of the main reasons that him and I got into racing was down to the loss of my mother. I lost my mother when I was 7 years old back in 2012, and she was part of Philadelphia Fire Rescue and she was definitely not keen on me getting involved in racing in any way, shape, or form. My dad used to bring me to NHRA drag races at Willow Grove back when I was 4, all the way back in 2009. And that's how I got involved in racing. And then after the loss of my mother, we got involved in racing, just trying to like build up a sense of like a father and son duo, because he was usually off working. I was either usually in school or just sound asleep. I was a very sleepy child, it must be noted. But through racing, that's how me and my dad kind of grew to know each other, grew to love each other, and build a bond which continues now into adulthood with me. Good Lord, coming up to about 2 months left until I enter my 20s. God have mercy on my soul. But that's a good thing with motorsports. It's a fantastic way to build a sense of community. But I think with that slightly wholesome note out of the way, we should probably get back on track and talk about the racing. And a spin for Tyler Reed heading through the Lacombe chicane. The driver of the number 47 Operation Motorsports car going for a spin. Was running 7th in the Open GT3 grid, but with a moment like that, he's now shooting down a running order with the spin heading through a very tricky section of the racetrack.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this is from experience. I love the Corvette. I love the way that it races. The Z06 is fantastic. However, it does not really like the curbs, and I did see him kind of hit the inside curb, and it looked like it kind of caught the front and just let the rear go and spun him. I was doing my practice for Petite, at Road Atlanta, and I just never could get the Corvette to hook up the way I wanted it to. So I think that may be a shortcoming of that car. And as we saw there, it just looked like the Corvette just did not want to work with the curbs at all. As we see Rios making that run with that nice draft up the hill as he worked the way into Lacombe in the Audi. Then we see Reed coming in, kind of catches the inside a little bit there. Definitely catches the inside there. See if we see anything. Yep, as they're working their way through Bruxelles. And then coming down into Jackie Ick's corner. And we'll go back to live and we'll see if we can find that actual replay. But yeah, the Corvette just seems like it doesn't really want to work with the curbs as much as some of the other cars do. Obviously, the Beamer just doesn't really care if there's a curb there or not. The Ford seems like it does okay. The Ferrari, as we see Reed a little wide there, as he's got some fast movers coming through.
See the LMP3s there battling, heading their way all through La Source not terribly long ago. This is a hornet's nest right now. Oh, be careful here on the squeeze. That's Connor Parise trying to thread the needle coming out of Eau Rouge and Radion going onto the Kemmel straightaway. This is a dangerous game, and it's a point that we mention every single week here from the Operation Motorsports series. Rolling with all multi-class sports car racing, you see a game of chicken develop as a spin. That right there was Jake Porter going for a spin right in front of some of the drivers running at the north end of the Pro Ben LMP2 class. That was Tyler Gilmet leading this pack at the moment. You've got Hunter Reeves splitting Gilmet and Meismer running P1 and P2 in the Pro Ben LMP2 class. But that was insane stuff heading through the opening sector of this lap. It's a game of chicken with the prototypes. One driver goes for a bold and audacious move, then another driver goes for a bold and audacious move, and sometimes it may end up in tears, but again, take a look at a replay to see this hecticness and craziness heading down into turn number 1. That was Gilmet trying to get that move done on Hunter Reeve down the inside, heading into La Source. Wasn't able to get that move done yet. However, he tucks into the draft and going down the hill, careening their way into a Rouge at the bottom of the hill, and then Radion at the top. There you can see Reeve getting checked up by the 2 GT3s right in front of him, and then Gilmet just had the run of a lifetime with a hole being punched in the air by both the LMP2 in front of him and the 2 GT3s. Gilmet was able to draw alongside going down the Kemmel straightaway, battle last late breakers heading off into the Lacombe chicane, and he was able to get the move done when everything is said and done. Inconvenient timing though. Gilmet a matter of inches from getting caught up in that Jake Porter spin. That was a heart-in-the-mouth moment if you're the leader in the Pro Ben LMP2 class. That was close.
That was very, very close. And yeah, that's when I mentioned the multi-class traffic at the beginning of this, that was what I had in mind. That is the worst possible place to come up behind a GT3 car. They are at, almost maximum pace, and that is the touchiest section of the track for them. It's so easy to get that line wrong with the GT3 car and just lose it. So great job by the LMP2s to work their way through and not put anybody in too bad a position, and still get all the way through there without any contact. And then, yeah, just a great job by Guillemette to avoid the spinning Porter there coming out of the cone.
Yeah, that was oh so close for him, and not a moment he looks to repeat between now and the end of this race. It's been so hectic thus far, we haven't noted the time. We have 18 minutes on the clock so far in this 45-man race, but believe me, the racing action still continues. This is Gregory Meismer riding on board with the number 75 ZFG Racing LMP2 car, running second in the Pro Ben class. He wants to get past Hunter Reeve running second in the Pro LMP2 category, because that would be the chance that he needs to try and make a run at Guillemette. Guillemette and Meismer have been trading blows in that class, and they've been trading victories as well. Meismer off the back of 3 straight. Guillemette started off the season with 2. But with the GT3 traffic, it is pandemonium with these drivers. They're covered by barely any air. Going on to the back, not so straight straightaway towards the end of this lap. Riding on board with Meismer still, trying to get that move done side by side, heading off into Blanchimont with himself and Reeve. That was dangerous stuff from Gregory Meismer, trying to get that move done, still down the inside, heading off into the chicane. Not close enough at this point in time, but Gregory Meismer, he is chomping at the bit. He is itchy. He is itching to try and find a way to get past Hunter Reeve and try and have any sort of challenge to get past Guillemette. He may have more victories over Guillemette, but he wants to grab some more between now and the end of the season. 3 victories may sound swell, but 4 sounds even better. However, he's got a fight on his hands, as does Guillemette. He lifts a little bit, heading down into the Erosion Radion section at the beginning of this lap, and that's going to give Meismer a fantastic opportunity. He has a run of a lifetime. He had to back out of it. There you can see the 54 Porsche GT3 car getting involved in that. This is pandemonium at the north end of the field. Guillemette still leading in the Pro Ben class. Hunter Reeve running second in the pros right behind, and Gregory Meismer trying to do everything he can, scrapping and clawing to find a way to get past these 2 LMP2s right in front.
Yeah, and I just want to give a quick correction. This is Connor Parise that's in the middle of this group, but that's okay. It was kind of threw me for a second there.
Caught up in the drama, my bad.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, it's a great 3-car battle, and I think Meismer is kind of just he's collecting data at this point. So the last time coming down the back stretch through Blanchimont, he kind of had a really good run early and kind of tried to force the issue before the kink, and then had to back out of it. So maybe this time he kind of just lifts a little bit and resets his car, gets through the kink, and then gets that good draft down the rest of the back stretch before we get to bus stop, and he can make his move there. So let's see if he's picked this up and if he makes a little adjustment to his driving.
Connor Parise, who I've just been calling Hunter Reeve for the past 5 minutes, he's still running strong. They're running 3rd in the Pro LMP2 class, trying to get a move done on another LMP2 side by side, heading off into the final chicane at the end of this lap. Guillemette so going to hold off the challenge for now from Parise, but this fight is oh so close between all of these drivers, and you still got GT3 traffic nearly 3 wide. They are threading the needle. They are trying to find any sort of way to get past. Look at Parise heading off down into turn number 1, trying to get that move done. He was oh so squirrely in the braking zone, heading off into La Source, not able to get that move done yet. Tyler Manning and the number 13 Porsche GT3 car running second in the open class at the moment, having to deal with the drivers in the LMP2s. That was a dangerous call between himself and Meismer running second in Pro Ben. In all of this drama with lap traffic, the gap between Ull and Manning has actually increased a lot, as that's a fight between Schuring and Manning for P2 in the Open GT3 category. Side by side, hang their way off into Lake Holm. Looks like Schuring's going to get that move done to slip his way up into P2 as Ull begins to pull away.
Yeah, Ull's going to pull away. We'll see if where those LMP3s or LMP2s catch him, and see if that maybe checks him up just a little bit. If they decide they're going to come around, as you see the lights flashing saying, "Here I come, get ready for it." So makes the run down to the inside. Parise follows through there, gets, as you see, Ull having to go wide and having to check the car up. Oh, Meisner just sneaking his way through. So that might have cost Ull a second or so. So we'll see if that allows Schuring and Manning to make up some ground on Ull. Had to do something for sure, but of course they had their own traffic to deal with. That like Wallace making his way through as well, so that might have been negated because of the other LMP2 that was coming through the field. But luckily, it means that all the LMP2s, I think with the exception of Salmon, have made it through the GT3 class. So that should mean that the GT3s can race amongst themselves a bit, and the LMP2s can race amongst themselves a bit. So that'll make things a lot more interesting and some straight-on fights.
And I'm curious if that is going to be the only time that the LMP2 drivers have to deal with the GT3 traffic. We've got some LMP2s coming down pit lane. That's Martin Wallace in the ZFG 666 car. So he's going to be coming into the pits from P4 in the Pro LMP2 category. Started this race on the front row, got involved in an incident heading through Lake Holm at the very beginning. So he's going to try one of that wacky off-the-wall strategy, but he's going to overshoot his pit stall a little bit. So Martin Wallace not doing himself any favors there. That's going to drop him down the running order a little bit. Reeve and Vickroy, meanwhile, they've begun to battle in the Pro LMP2 category. That gap has slowly come down between the two of them as we start to see some drivers come down pit lane. That looked like a slight overshoot from Tanner Masters, who's running second in the Ben GT3 class. So that's not going to help out his chances in trying to battle with Ian Carney and have a repeat of what happened 1 week ago at Road Atlanta. But that Reeve and Vickroy fight, I'm curious who could possibly switch to that, Josh, as these GT3 drivers come down pit lane for their one and only stop in this 45-minute long race. Gotta keep an eye on that. But Reeve and Vickroy, the gap between those two had continually decreased throughout this race, but Hunter Reeve finally able to get that move done on Skylar Vickroy. Reeve was a driver who won earlier on this season, was not in attendance for the last race of the championship at Road Atlanta, so not sure why he wasn't able to attend there, but Hunter Reeve able to get the move done to take the lead of the race, and oh, it was a close call. That may have actually been contact between Skylar Vickroy and the number 93 Corvette heading off into the Lake Holm chicane. We're going to follow Skylar Vickroy in the number 28 ZFG racing car heading his way through the chicane. And there you can see that slow car. That was Cameron Obernon, who I believe is a newcomer to this series. Very slow on the racing line and catching out Skylar Vickroy. That's going to hurt Vickroy quite a lot, as the gap between himself and Hunter Reeve has ballooned to 1.5 seconds with 25.5 minutes on the board. Skylar Vickroy going to hope to pull off a miracle through the pit cycle to be able to retake the lead of this race, on track to what he hopes will be a second victory on this season.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, and it just looked like the Corvette just had to check up a little bit mid-chicane, tap of the brakes. Obviously, you know, the LMP2 behind had to react and was able to successfully miss the car, but unfortunately got offline. It was allowed Vickroy to, allowed Reeve to make his way around, as you see right there. Yeah, just stopped the momentum, and so he'll have a little bit of work to do. Vickroy, that is, to make up that time, and yeah, maybe a short fuel strategy to try and make that time up during the pit stop.
Ooh, and it must be noted, as I cough right before we go back on the microphone, my apologies for that, folks. Hunter Reeve is slowly pulling that gap between himself and Skylar Vickroy. It's now going over 2 seconds, so I think Vickroy, as much as he was holding on to the lead, maybe relying off of that track position advantage over Reeve to try and hold on to the lead. So interesting stuff that we're seeing right now. Meanwhile, moving back over to the GT3s, Ian Carney in that 4-wide motorsports car coming into the pits, and I gotta say, 23.6 seconds stopped in the box. So even though Masters had that slight overshoot, that's going to create a tantalizing fight in the Ben GT3 category. That will be a big thing to keep your eyes on between now and the end of this race, with those two cars probably covered by barely any air as a result of all that. Seeing Anthony Calvi in the 4-wide motorsports number 20 exit the pits a little bit farther back of Luis Rios, who we're seeing come out of the pits right now in the number 10 car, running third at the moment. My apologies, would be running fifth if he was classed as a Pro LMP2 driver. He's running in the Ben GT3s, however. I mean, it would be very nice to see Audi make a top-running prototype car. I mean, with this new life being breathed into GTPs, of course, we don't have that in this series. Would be really cool to see Audi make a return to prototype racing, because when I first got into sports car racing as a whole, Audi were leaving, and it was really Porsche that took over the reins as the creme de la creme in LMP1 at that point in time. So it would be very nice to see Audi return to top-class prototype racing. Seeing some drivers still come down pit lane. Ty Schuring with an off-track moment as Corby comes into the pits from the lead in the Open GT3 category. So Corby coming down pit lane as Schuring has had to tow maybe a technical issue for Schuring. That's a disaster for him.
I think he was going to be out of fuel. I think he needed to come into the pits and just did not get in there. And so I think he decided it's better off to just tow from there as opposed to running out of fuel somewhere else on the backside of the track and then having to tow in. So I don't know if he crossed the start finish. I'm not sure if it's going to be like a full lap tow or if it's going to be a quick tow. We'll just have to kind of watch the clock and find out. But yeah, I think that he definitely think that he just missed the pit entry, or just didn't realize he needed to come in until it was too late.
That is going to be a heartbreaker for him. He was on track for a very good result. However, with that small low mistake, it ends in absolute tears for him. We'll see where he may be able to rejoin when everything is said and done. But either way, Ty Schuring with a big and costly mistake behind the wheel of that number 46 BMW. They'll follow him off. There you can see oh boy. So yeah, he just missed it coming down pit lane. There you can see he stopped on the start-finish line, was able to tick over 4 laps. I believe that gave him possibly a bonus point for leading a lap if those are handed out in this series. I'm not sure if there are bonus points given for drivers leading a lap in this series, but nevertheless, that's going to be a game changer for him. Meanwhile, Hunter Reeve coming into the pits from the lead overall. That now gives it back to Skylar Vickroy. So a split strategy call from the front two in Pro LMP2. And as Reeve now exits out, we'll see how things shake out compared to the other drivers to come down pit lane. A little bit longer spent down pit lane than Martin Wallace. So I'm curious how this is going to shake out for Hunter Reeve in the 44 car.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. It's, we can't really tell until some of the other leaders come into the pit. So, obviously coming in by yourself, you don't have the benefit of the tow from the other cars in your class, and that was a pretty epic battle they were having in the first half of the race. To just follow up on Schuring, so the good news is it did not cost him a full tow lap. The bad news is it did cost him an additional 40 seconds or so. So he's well down the order now. So the tow from there was much quicker than it would have been had it was a full tow lap, which would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 minutes. So obviously hurts his chances of getting a podium result, but still in the race. Ooh, as we see him just getting a little squeeze there, fighting over that corner between Gilmet and the 46 car of.
Oh, who was that going
Ty
off?
Schuring. That was Ty Schuring, and that's the Corvette of I'm not sure. Maybe Aubrignon again? Yeah.
Sets him off track yet again for the driver, the number 93 Corvette, making his series debut around this racetrack is definitely a big challenge for an open GT3 driver. Skylar Vickroy now coming down pit lane. So this is the driver who's just recently inherited the lead in the Pro LMP2 category, led for a decent chunk of the opening stage, lost it to Hunter Reeve, but now Skylar Vickroy coming into the pits. He hits his marks beautifully at the front of pit lane. Let's see how he exits out in reference to Reeve. Reeve spent 15.5 seconds stopped in his pit stall. How is it for Vickroy? Is it shorter? Is it quicker? It's shorter. 6/10 shorter to be a bit more precise. Reeve going to briefly take the lead, however, with that shortcut coming out of the pits and more than 1 second spent less down pit lane. It's going to be close between these two. Vickroy's going to be slow, and Hunter Reeve has the advantage of some hot tires on that LMP2 race car. Vickroy's going to be oh so careful dealing with that traffic of Calvi and dealing with the challenges of the Atlat. They're going to be so close to making contact. Going on to the couple straightaway, they made contact. I am sure of it. Hunter Reeve and Vickroy nearly bump drafting, heading their way off into the Lake Combe chicane. Skylar Vickroy getting a huge boot scoon boogie, heading off into turn number 5 and 6. A little bit of drama, a little bit farther behind. Not sure who that was. Very slow coming out of the chicane. But these two, they can't get caught up in a battle too much, because we could see Connor Parise have a big change of fortune for the driver who's been running in the podium positions in the Pro LMP2 class ever since the drop of the green flag. However, the driver, the number 11, who's already scored a victory thus far this season, he may be in a catbird seat to grab another one if those two drivers who would be inheriting P1 and P2 start to battle a little bit and maybe have some fisticuffs break out.
Yeah, this is going to be a crucial couple of laps for Parise till he comes in, because these cars are stuck together, so they're going to be moving faster than him as a solo car. So they're going to get the benefit of the draft down these straightaways. It's going to make these cars just run that much closer together. As you saw the bump drafting coming up Kimmel, that actually increases the speed of both cars. So it's going to be critical for Parise to have a very good in lap here as we see him coming into the pits now.
And with him coming into the pits later than both Vickroy and Reeve, he may be able to take slightly less fuel and have a slightly shorter run down pit lane. Would this be enough, though, is the real question. That's Vickroy and Reeve already going on to the start-finish straightaway. It would have been an absolute miracle if Parise was able to pull off such a quick stop that he'd be able to get out in front of these two. However, he had a pretty significant cushion between these two and himself, so that is not going to be a change in spot. However, I gotta say credit where credit's due to Parise. 13.5 seconds stopped in his pit stall, which is the quickest of any driver thus far by a pretty wide margin. The last driver in the LMP2s to make that decision to come down pit lane. Gotta say Martin Wallace as well, who I believe was one of the first, still had a shorter run down pit lane than Hunter Reeve, who is one of the latest. So pretty interesting from Martin Wallace. It'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to make it to the checkered flag in the final 10 minutes of this race. We got two battles in both of the LMP2 classes. Vickroy and Reeve covered by barely any air. You can see him still dealing with GT3 traffic, heading their way through Ravage of turn number 8, covered by barely any air as the two of them. They may start to bump drift again and make it a bump. Heading down into turn number 9, that was Reeve trying to get a move done on that Corvette GT3 car that he had to deal with all through turn 9. That nearly ended in tears, though. It was a matter of inches separating those two cars. It's also a matter of tenths separating those two drivers. It's a matter of inches separating these two. Gilmet had a big sideways snap coming out of turn number 9, and this is the opportunity that Gregory Meismer wants. Gilmet, he started this season off with 2 victories, but ever since then, it's been a goose egg for him in the wins column. So Gilmet looking to turn this season around in the final 3. Meanwhile, speaking of the number 3, that's how many victories Meismer has had thus far this season. Not just this season as a whole, but they've been back to back to back. So Meismer, as much as he likes having 3 victories and having one more victory over Gilmet, as much as 3 victories is nice, he would quite like a 4th in that wins column. So Gregory Meismer definitely going to be pushing that number 75 ZFG racing car to hell and back towards the end of this race. to try and find any sort of way to get past Gilmet. Meanwhile, moving on to the GT3 class, it's a pretty standard affair in open, with All and Manning covered by 10.9 seconds. However, shave 10 seconds off that gap and you have the gap in the Ben GT3 class, with Carney and Masters separated by actually less than 9/10 of a second. It is 7/10, 6/10, coming up to 5/10 between those two at the front of Ben GT3. Ian Carney in that full-wide Motorsports Porsche in front of the Mustang of Masters. Both of these drivers have scored victories thus far this season. They were in contention 1 week ago. A little bit of deja vu here at Spa tonight, Charles.
Yeah, a little bit. It looks like we've seen this script before, and so now we'll just figure out if everybody's got enough fuel in the car before this race is over, with a little less than 8 minutes left. Yeah, these battles up in LMP2 as well as this one are going to be really intense. You know, when you're talking about a half second or closer, these cars, and you can't fault, as we saw earlier, you can't fault Reed for wanting to stay on the back of Vicroy, because once the GT3 gets between those two cars, you're going to get about a half to a full second of cushion, just because you just got to wait for that car to get through the corner. So it can't really fault Reed for just forcing the issue on a couple of these corners. Just make sure he stays behind Vicroy.
There's not a whole lot of time left. There's not a whole lot of chances left for these drivers either, and it seems like there's not a whole lot of internet connection left for Hunter Reeve either. Having some blinking moments. That is not going to help out Hunter Reeve at all. That's certainly going to help out Skylar Vicroy, who's now in the lead of the Pro LMP2 category as a result of that battling that we saw once those two made their decision to come down pit lane. But Skylar Vicroy at this point in time trying to grab another victory on this season. Will he be able to get it done, though, is the real question. Gotta take a look at a replay of some drama involving Gregory Meismer and Gilmet. This happened just a few moments ago in the Ben GT3 category. That may have been an off-track excursion for Meismer. Yes, it was an off-track excursion for Meismer coming out of turn at number 9, which I believe Charles has said is Jackie Ick's corner now.
Yeah, I think it's Jackie Ick's corner now. I think so. Yeah, so I think it's got about 12 names, but yeah, I think, even no name corner is a name. So yeah, I think Jackie Ick's is the official title of it now, and obviously, one of the greatest racers in history, as especially in the history of Belgium, with his world championships in both car and motorcycle. So obviously, well deserved to have a corner named after him, especially one that changes configurations based on what vehicles are actually racing on the track.
Yeah, it would be very fitting that a corner which can change pretty much regardless of what kind of racing discipline is being run there. It's quite fitting that the other corner is named after a driver who is oh so adaptable. Meanwhile, a big moment for Brandon Mateo to spin in a big bit of drama in the GT3s. That's Ty Schuring, I believe, involved in the midst of that. Daniel Salmon in the LMP2s getting a good view of that drama coming out of Lake Combe, heading through Malmedy of turn number 7. Ty Schuring was the driver in the number 46 car that got involved in that. Still running a top 5 spot in the Open GT3 class when everything is said and done. May have been a podium spot, however, it ends in tears with that mistake that we saw not terribly long ago. That was a big bit of drama. Tyler Reed in the number 47 car got involved in that as well. Gotta take a look at a replay to see what exactly went wrong here, with a great view from Salmon in the LMP2 that was encroaching on this drama.
Yeah, okay, so Mateo gets loose, has to check up the car. He's over on the left-hand side on the curb. Reed looks to the inside, think maybe takes some curb on the inside as well, and Schuring just kind of barrels his way through. I mean, he's trying to keep racing, and it just seemed like everybody, was trying to find alternate lines that just didn't quite work out. We'll get another view of it here from above as we see Mateo on the left-hand side, just loses the rear there. You can see him catch the car, Reed to the inside, into the gravel, does the same thing. Schuring has to check up, move to the outside. Mateo's there, and they make contact, and Mateo goes around.
And that right there, folks, is exactly why Joker laps are not used in the world of road racing, unless you're talking about MotoGP when they have to run that penalty line, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, talking about the racing that we still have going on right now, the fight between Carney and Masters heading down into the Lacombe chicane. These two cars covered by barely any air, one in a Porsche, another in a Mustang, both drivers with victories on the board thus far this season. Carney at 3, Masters at 1. They're still going to be battling hard, though. They are on a one-on-one fight. However, they've got a one-on-one fight right behind them as well, as Tyler Gilmet in the lead in the Pro Ben LMP2 class, still behind a big slide from Masters, heading through turn number 9. That was a near disaster for him. Gilmet losing out on a little bit of time, but Masters going to lose out on some time as well. Meismer, my apologies, losing out on some time. Actually didn't lose out on some time, even with that interesting interpretation of track limits. Heading through Pouan, he's still got to be side by side. Heading through Fanye towards the middle sector of this lap, side by side, deciding the victory in the Pro Ben category. And look at that, that's Martin Wallace getting involved in that in the 666 ZFG racing car. He's running 4th in the Pro LMP2 class, and he's getting dicey with these two drivers as well. This is going to be a monumental fight between Gilmet and Meismer coming towards the end of this race with not a whole lot of time left on the clock. That's what, 2.5 minutes? Less than 2.5 minutes, coming to only 2 minutes on the 45-minute long clock. So not a whole lot of time left for these drivers, not a whole lot of laps left for these drivers, and not a whole lot of overtaking opportunities left for these drivers as well. However, with 19 corners full of challenge, it's still a whole lot of opportunities to make some sort of mistake, which your opponents could absolutely capitalize on.
Yeah, absolutely. Just watching this and still just a battle. It's just interesting to see the two Ben classes running together, and the LMP2s trying to work their way through and maintain. And I want to say it looked like that maybe Gilmet just kind of got checked up by Masters a bit as they were working their way through there, and had to slow down. Maybe caught Meismer out just a little bit, took a wide line just to make sure they didn't make contact, and they're side by side coming down the backstretch.
Here we go, heading off into Lacombe. There we go, off the Camel straightaway, and Gilmet is still holding off the challenge. Gotta say, credit where credit's due from Gregory Meismer. He has gone for it many times, and he's been playing the patient game. I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, these drivers are on the white flag lap, or will be coming to take the white flag this time by Skylar Vicroy. Possibly on the white flag now with less than a minute on the clock. I believe Vicroy, it's going to be close with about 40 seconds left on the clock, heading his way around turn number 15 and for what could be the final time. The gap to himself and Reeve has ballooned as of late. It's 2.1 seconds. It's actually gone down a little bit, however, not going to be close enough towards the end of this race for Reeve to have any sort of challenge of Vicroy, who is looking to grab just his second victory from this 6-race-old season. He's going to be heading his way around the final chicane. It's going to be close, but Vicroy is going to be taking that white flag this time by only 8 seconds between that and the finish. I'll tell you what, if Reeve was out of the picture and he had a 10-second gap to himself on P2, he may have been able to afford to just lift off a little bit and bring it home one lap early. That's the thing with these timed races as well. When fuel's a big factor, having one more lap can throw a big wrench in the works. However, Gregory Meismer is very happy the fact we have one more lap of racing action here at Spa Francorchamps, because it gives him more time to try and get a move done on Gilmet. This is a fight between these two. It's going to be nothing between the two of them by the time they go into the Lacombe chicane for the final time. Still dealing with some GT3 traffic. Meismer having to go for a bold move, heading off until Rouge. It's going to end in tears with a big moment and a big bit of wall contact for Gregory Meismer. That is going to take him out of contention for the victory, and that may also be a tow for him as well. That was a pretty significant whack against the concrete barriers coming around there. If we didn't have this rescan, that would have been an aircraft accident for Gregory Meismer. That would have been a sickening collision with the tire barriers, which in the world of iRacing are pretty much made out of the matter of white dwarf stars rather than actual used tires. At this point in time, that Pro Ben LMP2 battle, that's fizzled off a little bit. I think our attention is probably going to be on the other side of the GT3 class. Corby all on track for 6th victory of the season and possibly locking up the championship. But in the Ben GT3 category, Masters, Carney side by side, heading into revanche for the final time. Masters and Carney, they're battling towards the end of Road Atlanta, and they're battling again here at Spa, side by side, heading off through Jackie X of 9. These drivers adapting to an interesting line, and Carney able to withstand the challenge from Masters. Not a whole lot of time left for Masters to try and get that move done. Got to keep our eyes on this. Meanwhile, Skylar Vickroy got to take the checkered flag to win here at Spa. It's just his 2nd victory of the season. But a fantastic way to do it as well in dominating fashion here from the 45-minute race that we just saw the conclusion of. Hunter Reeve going to finish in P2. Looks like it's going to be Connor Parise rounding out your podium in 3rd. And meanwhile, going back to the GT3s, Corby all taking his 6th victory on this season. Even though he's not running in that venerable Mercedes, switching over to that Mustang, he's still as dominant as ever. A 16-second gap between himself and this man, Tyler Manning, when everything is said and done. I don't believe we'll be able to confirm it on this broadcast, but that is pretty much going to be game, set, match in the Open GT3 Championship for Corby All. He has been the clean sweeper thus far, and continuing that with only 2 more races left to go. Ian Carney, meanwhile, he had to withstand a whole big challenge from Masters, but this is going to be his 4th victory of the season. He had to defeat Masters to be the master in Ben GT3 yet again this season. Ian Carney wins it over Tanner Masters, who gave it the old college try when everything was said and done. But still, credit where credit's due to all of the drivers up and down the field for giving us a huge run. I gotta say, Daniel Salmon inherited P2 in the Pro Ben LMP2 class as a result of that tow from Gregory Meismer. So I'm sure he's going to be very happy about that result when everything is said and done. But Meismer, looking back on that incident, Charles, I'm curious, Josh, you could possibly find a replay of that drama involving Meismer heading off through a Rouge and Radion for the final time. I don't know about you, Charles, but that just looked like an act of pure, unbridled desperation.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it was just a matter of Guillemette having enough room to get by the GT3 car before Eau Rouge, and Meismer doing what we talked about before with the same thing that Reed did, just trying to force the issue and make his way through. He just ran out of room. And you're right, yeah, that would have been in that compression zone. That car would have been airborne, probably over in the left-hand or right-hand wall, and probably coming back across the track, carrying as much speed as you can imagine. But yeah, just, he had to try and make that move to try and, because otherwise he was going to lose the tow to the car in front. He might have got passed as well by Wallace. And so, it's just one of those things about racing is you just got to try and make that, and it just couldn't get it done. Too much compression on the car, couldn't hold on to it and put it in the wall. And that's racing sometimes, unfortunately. And, tough luck, because it was a great battle for, 44 minutes up until that point. It's been fantastic watching these guys race all season long, and that was would look like to be another classic ending that just never happened.
Well, still a pretty classic race here from round number 6 of the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. This man, Skylar Vickroy, takes a victory when everything is said and done. Gonna have a chat with a few drivers before we wrap things up here tonight on Apex Racing TV. But I think the first matter of business is taking a look at the results when everything is said and done, with a nice smoke show from some of the drivers. There's Tyler Manning in the number 13 car, treating us to some nice donuts on that start-finish line. And some nice donuts. There's Corby also treating us to some good donuts on that start-finish straightaway. Hey, they put tires on the race car, they use them in the race, may as well burn them down to the canvas when everything is said and done. But take a look at the results from a dramatic, yet another exciting 45-minute long race here from our Operation eMotorsports Racing League. And in the end, Skylar Vickroy takes just his 2nd victory on the season when everything is said and done. Hunter Reeve going to finish right behind in P2. Connor Parise going to be riding at your overall and Pro LMP2 podium in third. Tyler Gilmet going to be the winner in the Pro Beneficiary category when everything is said and done. Going to finish P4 overall. Martin Wallace, who was able to make it to the checkered flag on one stop, and a very early stop and a short stop as well. The 666 ZFG Racing LMP2 Pro driver going to finish P5 overall. Daniel Salmon behind the wheel, the number 4 LMP2. He's going to be finishing second in the Pro Ben LMP2s. And P6 overall. Greg Meismer going to round out your LMP2 field. Kobiol going to be finishing the top of the GT3 race cars. He finishes in front of Tyler Manning, and Ian Carney in the number 54 4-wide motorsports car going to take the victory in the Ben GT3 class and round out your overall top 10.
Yeah, Tanner Masters gets to second place in the Ben GT3. He finishes 11th overall. Tyler Beeman finishing 12th. Matt Ayotte finishing 13th. Ty Shearing in 14th. Brandon Mateo gets the final step on the podium in the Ben GT3s in 15th position. Gene Kelly 16th, Tyler Reed 17th, John Hicks in 18th, Luis Rios in 19th, Jacob Little in 20th. Get to the last page here. Rui Pereira in 21st, Jake Porter 22nd, Cameron Aubernon in 23rd, Anthony Calvi in 24th, Elliott Whitfield, I think we talked about, had maybe had some connection issues at the beginning of the race. And finishes in 25th position.
And so that is going to round out your results from the 6th race of the championship. I am coughing up a storm here in the commentary booth. Thankfully, we're doing these broadcasts virtually, so I can't spread whatever illness has affected me. Could be bird flu, could be whatever it may be. Whatever's going around here on the east coast of the U.S. in the city of Philadelphia at the beginning of fall is whatever I have picked up. So, Charles, if you don't mind, would you like to have a chat with some of these drivers before we wrap things up here on Apex tonight?
Yeah, let's bring in Tyler Gilmet, the winner in the Ben LMP2 class. So, Tyler, congratulations on the victory in the Ben LMP2 class. Great battle just all race long up until the last lap between you and Greg Meismer. And then traffic rears his ugly head. So talk about it from your perspective.
We had a fantastic battle all race between Pro and Pro Ben. Traffic was, I won't say as much of a nightmare as last week at Road Atlanta, but it definitely played a part in the result in tonight's race. I think we probably would have given you guys a show just like last week if that didn't happen on the last lap there. It's unfortunate for Greg. He really puts the pressure on.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. I was saying the same thing. I was looking forward to that last lap battle. But that's part of racing is just, catching traffic at the right time, and you were able to sneak past that GT3 before Eau Rouge, and Greg had to try and force the issue, and it just didn't pay off.
Yeah, and we had a little drivers meeting after last week with the LMP2 drivers just to try and calm things down with our overtakes, and I think it worked for the most part tonight. And I think going forward in the rest of the season, we should have some great racing with minimal casualties.
Yeah, absolutely. And so week off next week to prepare for Petit Le Mans. And then we'll be back here in 2 weeks at Sonoma. So what are your thoughts about Sonoma in the LMP2 car?
I don't have any yet. I don't think I've actually run this car there. It seems like it might be kind of a mix of Spa and Road Atlanta with the elevation changes and the bumpy track, and it's really narrow. So I think it's going to be exciting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations again. Let's give you a chance to say your thanks to the people out there.
Yeah, thank you to Operation Motorsport, and thanks to Apex Sim Racing for sponsoring this season, as well as Tooth. Without that and the support of all of our supporters, we wouldn't be able to do these things. So thank you.
Right. Congratulations, Tyler. Thanks. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you guys. See you then.
All right. Bye-bye.
And that right there was Tyler Gilmet, who ends up winning in the Pro Ben LMP2 category. And Charles, who would you like to have a chat with next?
Well, let's get the other side of that. So let's get the LMP2s out of the way, and let's talk with Greg Meismer, and we'll let him come in here. And Greg, we were just talking with Tyler. That was about 44 great minutes of racing between you and him, and then the last lap showed up. And GT3s just kind of do what GT3s do, and they just seem to get in the way of the LMP2s.
No. That was 100% my fault. I shot for that gap going up on Rouge and just, or I guess Radeon, if you want to be technical about it. But yeah, I'm disappointed in myself for sure. That was stacking up to be a good finish.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't laying blame on the GT3s. It's just the location of where he was as you guys were on the last lap, and it just obviously, completely, a mistake, but almost a necessary one because of what you were trying to do, and it was just we saw a few instances of that with other cars, just having to force the issue a bit. Just to try and keep that gap, because once you lose the gap, that it's just very tough to recover the time if you have to lay back behind a GT car.
Yeah, I was desperately just trying to keep the draft after the pit stop. When I came into the pits, I had my tires were showing they were already in the 70s, all four. Right, I had no tires by the end of the race, so I was just praying for traffic. It was the only thing that was going to close the gap between me and Tyler at that point.
And we didn't talk about that, but I had heard from some guys on my team that the new scan of Spa was a little more tire heavy as far as the usage in the prototype cars. So
it's abrasive,
for sure. All right, Greg. Well, congratulations. So Sonoma in 2 weeks. What are your initial thoughts about that?
I'm okay at Sonoma. We don't have a great history, me and that track, but I'm okay there. I do have to go to Road Atlanta between now and then, so yeah, I'm kind of focused on that at the moment.
Yeah, understood. All right, Greg, congratulations. Let's give you a chance to give your thanks and shouts out.
Just thanks again to you guys in Operation Motorsport, and thank you to Tyler Manning for not just blowing up on the chat when I hit him going up into the turn.
Yeah, maintaining some radio discipline. That's always a good thing, right?
Yep.
All right, thanks, Greg. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks.
And that right there was Greg Meismer, the other side of that fantastic fight in Pro Ben LMP2. Kind of feel bad for you, Charles, with the one-sidedness of the interviews after these after the fantastic race that we had, but my vocal cords are hanging on virtually by the skin of their teeth. So we're going to bring in one more driver to have a chat, that being the winner in the Ben GT3 category, that being Ian Carney.
All right, yeah, Ian. So congratulations, a great battle between you and Tanner for basically the entire race. And so let's talk about your race from your perspective.
Yeah, I pulled out with the front pack there, all Colby and his friends, and I think another guy named Tyler at first. And I just love racing with Tanner. He's so fun to race with because he's clean and whatnot. So I ended up meeting up with him later after I jacked up my pit stop. I ran too long on the pit stop. I had to back up, and my auto fuel was all messed up. The nerves, they're still getting to me. And so we fought side by side through a few turns. I'm sure you guys were watching that. That was so much fun. I ended up coming around him on like turn 5 or 6 down at the bottom of the hill, and it was so much fun. Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it was really clean racing, or at least as best you could. The LMP2 seemed like they played a little bit of a role in some of the cornering that we had. We saw several incidents, and it's just the nature of the beast when you're talking about multi-class racing, right?
No, absolutely. And you know what's crazy is that Mustang has like buku torque, because every time I'd pull up a half a second, 3/4 of a second gap on him up Eau Rouge, he would just power up that hill, catch me by the end. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do, but somehow I kept up. It's a miracle, really.
All right. Well, I'll ask you the same last question I asked everybody else. We have Sonoma in 2 weeks. Obviously, Petit Le Mans in the middle of that. So, what are your initial thoughts about Sonoma in your Porsche?
I'm not gonna lie, Charles. I don't even own the track right now, so we're gonna have to work on that a little bit.
Well, if you
I'm going to Florida this weekend, so it's gonna be a problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to tell you, if you like our 3-week stretch of CTMP, Road Atlanta, and Watkins Glen, you'll feel right at home at Sonoma.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
All right, so it'll give you a chance to give your thanks and shout outs.
Yeah, shout out to Opmo, shout out to Apex Racing TV. I've been having so much fun in this. Got my boy Rui, got my boy Anthony, got Richard, all of my team helping, keeping me company during the race. We're having such a good time. I look forward to this every week.
Ian, congratulations, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks.
And that right there was Ian Carney, the winner in the Ben GT3 category. He finds himself in a fantastic spot coming into the final 2 races of this season to try and seal the deal in that Ben GT3 championship. And now, Charles, as you mentioned in the interviews with the drivers, going to be taking a 1-week break for the Petit Le Mans. But then after that, we have a final 2-week stretch to bring this season to a close. Going to be running at Sonoma and Sebring. So I'm going to ask you the same question that you asked those drivers. How do you think Sonoma's going to be in 2 weeks' time?
Well, Sonoma, we talked about CTMP and what Watkins and Road Atlanta being really tight tracks. The passing is going to be at a premium. And as you heard from Ian, he hasn't even bought the track yet. So to add on to all that, Sonoma is really very lightly used. Not a lot of people really run the track. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience for most of the drivers out here, which is going to just add to it a little bit. But it is a very, very tight course. It's a fun course to race once you get it, but it's a very, very tight track. So it may be another one of those that we're going to see a lot of pushing and shoving, trying to get through corners. But I think overall, it's going to be a pretty good race because it is a fun track to drive.
I gotta see some fisticuffs possibly break out, some great racing as well. And it's gonna be nice to see Sonoma get some use. In my entire time doing sim racing broadcasts, I think I've only done 1 or maybe 2 broadcasts of any sort of races at Sonoma. It's a track that doesn't get a lot of use in the service, but it's still a pretty fun one, both in real life and in the sim as well. And if you want to catch all of the action for the final 2 races of this season, that gives you even more of a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell here to Apex Racing TV so you never miss a thing. The final 2 races that we have lined up for this season of the Operation eMotorsports iRacing League are going to be fantastically entertaining, and hopefully you can be on board for all of the action. But as for this broadcast tonight at Spa, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a fine job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.